In this episode, we got three major components: brake line, fuel line, and a radiator install. Well, kind of an install. You'll see. Stick around. Alright, so the first thing I really hope works, it wasn't cheap, is my radiator. So I ended up having to custom order a radiator that's going to work. I ended up calling US Radiator, which is, at least in the Mopar world, known to be very good for reproducing stock style ones, or I guess stock style that are modified. In turn, I explained what I have inside the car, and they pretty much told me there's not a chance in hell that we're going to sell you a stock radiator or a stock style one. You're going to have to go to a custom fab one. And we can do that for you through a different company. It's the same owner, the same quality. It's just one does copper brass and one does aluminum. So I ended up placing an order. The company technically is CG&J. And I'm going to show you this radiator. I cracked open the very top of the box just to see what it was. I haven't even pulled it out yet. And I'm going to tell you right now, it already looks amazing. Let's see if I can get some room over here, maybe walk over here. We'll actually get this thing out of the box. So, while I'm opening this, I ended up going with a 3-core radiator with 1-inch cores. This already is going to be really close, and I pray it's going to fit. But, at the end of the day, this is what I'm working with. Flip this around. So I'm showing one damaged mounting tab right there. So I think I should be able to kind of just bend that back into place. I'm not too worried about that. So let me set this down. We'll go from there. All right, now this radiator has set me back quite a bit. It's about $800. And I know some people are gonna sit here and say, I'd rather just buy a Champion or something else. However, you have to remember that although they do work, a custom fab shop, a lot of them will recommend and state, well, we'll guarantee that it'll fit. Now, they had recommended that, well, given where I'm living, they told me flat out, there is no guarantee. Due to the fact that, well, this is such an unknown on all the parameters on this setup, the weather, and everything else. And there's one other big thing that I'm gonna have to deal with, and obviously, as you can see here, it's gonna come into play real quick. So right now, I'm gonna see what I can do to get rid of the battery tray and some of these other bolts in here that I'm getting caught up on, for me to be able to fit this in. All right, that freed up a little bit more room. Now, getting it to actually fit though, that's gonna be hard. And not only that, it's the mounting brackets. So, I don't know if I have the mounting brackets in the right spot. And I don't wanna keep putting this in and out, causing issues. So, I'm gonna have a little trick that I'm gonna show you, and hopefully it will save my radiator from getting all banged up from hitting the blower. Alright, and I'm back, and here is the secret. Throw a little tape on it. So all I did, throw a little cardboard on the front, throw some tape on there. That way if you're gonna drag that across something, it's gonna hit the cardboard and not your fins. So now that everything's out, let's see if I can slide this in see if it actually clears. Whew. Let me tell you what, not by much, but clearance is clearance. Huh. Not by much at all. This might be a problem. I think I'm supposed to have more than a finger's worth for the belt. But let's get what we can mounted and we'll go from there. Gee dang it. Come on now. Man, you are not light, are you? Go to your home. That's what you're stuck on. Realistically, there's only one way for me to fix this. And that is that eventually this radiator's got to come back out so I can take it to a radiator shop or a welding shop that does TIG welding. And then what I can do is either have them angle the, I'll do a chop at it and then angle it at like a 45 or a slight angle, which would work. Or I think the intent is for me on this to run A&N fittings for my radiator tubes. So what I may do is just bring it to a radiator shop and have them weld on an AN fitting, which will allow me then to run my upper and lower hoses, but then I also have to modify and weld that fitting onto my water pump, inlet and outlet. I just got to worry about the plumbing concept. That's gonna be painful, but that's my plan. So on this, I'm gonna be running pusher fans because, as you can tell, I don't have any clearance on the backside for puller fans, which is going to be a whole nother issue. Down here, there's not really a lot of cool weather. And in turn, pusher fans typically don't operate as efficiently as puller fans. Plus, there's a lot of reasons why some people say don't run pusher fans, because once you start putting more stuff in front of the radiator, when you're driving, you can reduce the amount of airflow that's actually hitting the radiator. Now, technically, your fans are supposed to be moving air, which would offset that, but it's not realistic that you're going to be moving the same amount of air off of a pusher fan as you would getting that much extra area off of wind hitting the front of the car at 60 or 70 miles an hour. So, with that being said, I'm going to be running two 12-inch pusher fans. So, this one pusher fan is rated for, I want to say it's 1325 CFM. I'm going to have two, so that'll put me just above 2600. And in turn, I'm going to run them down here. Now, I ended up going with Be-Cool's pusher fans that they were advertising. And I'm going to save you guys probably a little bit of money right now. Because I can tell you right now, regardless of what the box says, right? Be-Cool's logo, granted it's sideways because I opened the box upside down, but you guys won't be able to see it very well. All this is a spall fan. It's a spall fan. That's what it is. Nothing special about this. They literally just bought spall fans and then reboxed them to be Be-Cools. So just buy spall fans because you don't have to pay that extra for the Be-Cool. But anyway. Alright, so now that the parking brake's done, radiator's dry fitted, which you gotta come back out no matter what. We start working on brake lines. I may spend a few minutes to pick up this mess because it's getting pretty bad in here. However, one of the other parts that I ordered that I got in is this here. So, this is a company called Surr, S-U-R-R. It is specifically a kit. So I ended up getting copper nickel, like I was going to do on my brake lines. I'm sorry, my fuel lines. Before I just said, no, I'm just gonna go soft line. However, this is a complete kit, which is supposed to come with everything you need. That's getting beat by bubble wrap. Alright, so this is supposed to be a complete kit of everything you need in whatever size tubing that you buy. So I bought both 1/4 inch and 3/16. But it's a complete kit, everything you'll need for the fittings themselves. And then on top of that, you get, I want to say it's 20 or 25 feet of tubing. So with that being said, yeah, it's a pretty nice package. I do like the fact that, I mean, you get quite a few fittings from each one, all the styles you're going to need. Some that only have about 2. It's a little concerning. However, for a full brake job, it should be fine. So I got it in 3/16, and I also have it in 1/4 inch. I will probably try to run it in 1/4 to give myself just a little bit more fluid to push on that. But I will say that this kit's much smaller, I guess, which is odd to me, I guess, but whatever. Okay, you just get more fittings, less style in the 1/4 inch. So that's what you got for that. I mean, other than that, you get a quantity of 4 for all of them. Hopefully I won't need more than 4. Other than that, still comes with the 1/4 inch tubing. Extremely easy to bend by hand. Should be no issue with trying to get this ran for the vehicle. I just gotta find the routing line that I want to go with and get it pretty much put in. I'm supposed to have a distribution block for the Willwood master cylinder. I gotta find it. I hope I have them. Otherwise, I'm gonna find one. That way I can even out my front and rears. However, yeah, let's see if I can find it. I'm gonna start working on the brakes. So I'm gonna throw on, I've already did the backs, but there's a kit from Willwood for the flex lines that bolts up to the calipers. They use a specific size. I could look at the sticker. It's an odd pitch, and if you don't use a Willwood brake kit or their flex lines, you're going to have to find that one specific fitting. And it's like a 3/16 by like 27 pitch, or it's something really weird when it comes to pipe threading. So just realize that that's going to be a problem. However, the kit I'm going to use is supposed to be able to fix that. Shouldn't have any issues with it. Backs went on without an issue. So now I'm going to drop on the fronts. And then really from there, I'm just waiting to figure out how I want to run my brake lines. And that's going to be happening probably next. As soon as I can find my proportioning valve. I don't know where I put it. And I got a lot of stuff. So I gotta find it. Because they gotta start from that side and run them to the back. Let me get this installed. I'm gonna brainstorm where I maybe hit that proportioning valve. I really don't want to buy another one. I already spent enough in this damn car. Alright, so breaking open this kit. Comes with 2 flex lines and some pieces. They come with, each side has one fitting like that with an AN fitting on one end, and then a place for you to clamp it on. And then it comes also with a 90-degree fitting. This 90-degree fitting has an AN fitting on the other side, which bolts up to the flex line, and then that one specific pipe threading that's very difficult. All you're going to do, there you go. That's the size it is, 1/8 by 27. All you're going to do, I'm going to throw a little Teflon, liquid Teflon on this, obviously to make sure it has a good seal. So all you're going to do is just thread together. And remember, for AN fittings, you're not supposed to use all of the extra sealants and stuff. You're not required to have to run pipe sealant or anything like that. Now what I will say is I will put some Teflon on the pipe threading, because the pipe threading isn't self-sealing like AN is on that side. So again, that's self-sealing, that is not. So let's get the little pipe. Alright, so once you actually get some sealant or Teflon on the pipe side, what I actually use to install it is a crow's foot. Crow's foot works really well for this. It's going to be 7/16, and works awesome for getting it kind of up. You can kind of get in that one area and you can twist it to whatever angle you want it to be at or whatever it be. But works pretty well. I got mine Harbor Freight, relatively cheap. I buy Icon on all my stuff. Definitely don't need to be Icon. However, just realize you can pick these up relatively inexpensive. And yeah, I'll probably look on eBay, Facebook markets, whatever you want to look at if you want to try to find a used site even. But definitely makes it a lot easier to install. Alright, time to throw a little thread sealant on. Definitely don't want a ton on there. Decent amount on there. Should work. Let's get back into the car quick before this dries. With the crow's foot, get it installed. That's the one side done. I will have to check the top to make sure there's no binding. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty simple. I used a hammer just to tap in that last little bit. But I'm going to knock out the other side quick, and then still trying to figure out where that proportioning valve is. Haven't figured it out yet. So I was able to find my proportioning valve. It's pretty well constructed. I'm just kind of loosely bolting this thing together. Finding out the fitting size on the bottom, things like that. It comes with a bracket that will mount to the in between the booster and the master cylinder. So right now I'm just trying to get that unbolted, see how that bracket goes on, so I can be able to, I guess, get this on however it needs to sit, and then go from there. It's pretty nice. Things are labeled. It's kind of hard to see right now because there's no light on the back side of the camera, but it does state front in, it's FI and RI, so I'm assuming front and rear, and then it's front out dual and then rear out single. So it works pretty well in that. Well, after a good check on the good old interwebs, I was able to find out that it fits in like so. Unfortunately, it doesn't fit in like so. Mine hits the inner apron. Doesn't fit. Weird. Who would have thought? This guy. Nothing fits on this car. Nothing. If it says it fits, they're liars. I think the easiest route would be I remake brake line and then just modify the bracket. My welds are not going to hold for my basic tack, but that should work. So I'm just going to roll some line real quick. I'm going to show you roughly what I'm doing. Notice this stuff is extremely easy to bend. However, I want to roughly show you some of the things that I have which will help. And I think I've talked about some of these before. It's been a while. So I'm going to just start from the beginning and go from there. So the very first tool I have is this, which helps me roll a flat line. It's pretty nifty, bolts right in. I will spin it so you guys can see what I'm doing. As soon as I can get it loosen up a little bit for me here. Come on now. There we go. All right, so it's not too fancy. All it does is you insert a line to it, and then as you roll it back and forth, just kind of keep tightening it down. So I can already tell you right about there where I want to be. All I'm going to do is just keep tightening it down and spinning the tube around just like so. And what you're going to notice is that it doesn't always work great for the very end, but everything else you can get pretty straight. So sometimes what you have to do is just trim that end off if you need to. However, relatively straight line. You can obviously work on this a lot more, get it perfect if you want. But it's a nifty little tool. You can find them online. I think I went on eBay for this one. A couple of different companies make them, and they work pretty well. So, the second part is going to be cutting and flaring. So, I'm going to switch back over to my Eastwood kit that I have here. It's pretty nifty. So this is the 45-degree flares that's on here now. You can remove this. I also have a 37 for AN fittings that you can then put on, right? It's real simple. Literally, that's all it takes to swap out your dies. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get that line cut just real short, show you roughly what I got to do with it. You're going to want this cinched back down so it doesn't move on me. And two more tools I have: wire cutter, tube cutter, and then there's a tool that I was also able to find online. It's pretty nifty. It has a little deburring tool that I have. So what I'm going to do right now is just so I'm not really worried about wasting steel line. This stuff is pretty cheap. But what I'm going to do is place it into my cutter, like so, and just work my way around, get a good cut on it. Now the problem what's going to happen is as you're cutting this, you're actually pinching this tube. So what's going to happen is your end is very, very small. It's almost caved in. So this little nifty tool I got, simply just place on there and you just spin it. That's all you got to do. And all you're going to notice is it kind of bores it back out a little bit. Also, the other end does the outside to make sure you don't have any burrs on the outside of that tube. So now that that is cleaned up, I can worry about putting on a fitting. So let me go from there. Give me 1 second. All right, so what I got now, just random fitting. So the first step, put your fitting on. Don't forget that. On this piece, obviously it doesn't matter. If I forgot, I can just put it right on the other side. However, when you have a full brake line and you start getting used to it, always make sure that that's the habit you get into. So the Eastwood kit comes with a series of different dies. It's pretty nifty. 3/16, I want to say there's a quarter, 5/16, and 3/8. So it's going to do up to a 3/8 fuel line if you want to do that. Also, each one has 2 styles of the die. So I don't know if you focus too well on that. However, so you have the 45-degree flare, and then you have a 45 din. So the din is located at the bottom. You'll notice how it's much more squared off. The 45 on top actually has a decent actual 45-degree flare to it. It's pretty interesting how that works, right? So all you're gonna do, make sure your dies match up, right? Don't mix them up. Your fitting is on. Go ahead, place your fitting in, right? Double check to make sure you're using the correct size. The sides, place it in. It snaps into place like so. Tighten it down. So before I go too tight, I always back this up just a tad. So then what I'm going to do, all I'm going to do is just tighten. So what it's going to do is it's actually going to have a press that locks in. Let's see if I can. So as I pull this, right, I'm on OP0. So imagine it like operation 0. Right, so I'm on operation 0. This is the first thing you're going to do. Then, depending on what size you have, you're going to use OP1 all the way to OP2, depending on what kind of flavor you're trying to do, right? So, for example, OP0, what it's going to do is it's going to actually create a completely flat product before I completely cinch this down. I want to make sure that it's flush. So that's what I just did there. I'm going to do a quick little tighten on that. I have 3/16 tubing, so I'm going to go to OP1. Notice how it closes right onto the lip of that. Give it a good pull. It'll lock out. Now I want to add a double flare to it, so I'm going to go to OP2. Right, OP2. There's my second flare. And remove. And remove. And there is my flare. I mean, it's literally that simple. Fits perfect. No issues. Alright, so literally it's that easy with this tool. The hard part about this is that you can't do it off the car. That's going to be a hindrance later on for me. However, I should be able to do the majority of what I need off of this. The hard part I'm going to have is that I need to get the fuel line, the brake line, literally right there to the length I need. If it's too long, I'm going to have to burn the slack up. If it's too short, I'm SOL. But if it's too long, I can't cut it and leave it on the car. I'm going to have to pull it off the car and then rework and reroute everything. And then hopefully it stays where I want it to when I do my cut. So anyway, pretty simple, pretty easy to do. All I'm gonna do now is take a couple of these and rig it up on my brake booster, master cylinder to proportioning valve to get a little practice doing it, because again, I don't have too much experience with this, so get a little practice with it there. Those are the short, kind of harder to do pieces. And then I'm gonna worry about working from the proportioning valve to each of the wheels. So I'll take you along for that. Now it's obviously very hard for you guys to be underneath the car with me, so I'm going to try to show you from the wheel well what I'm working with. Alright, definitely hard to see, however, you can see the distribution block way back there. And I got to bring a line over here where my soft flex line, which is here, mounted off of the side of the caliper here, connects to. Alright, so the easy way, I guess I was able to find a way around this, was because I was able to find some brackets from, I want to say it's RMS. So these little brackets right here that actually are supposed to attach to the spring bolts at the rear end, but since I'm not using a lot of stock stuff, these don't work. But that does, and that is the right size I need to be able to have a mounting point for the soft line. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually filling up the air tank, if you can hear, and I'm going to chop off this part. I'm going to weld that to my Dana 60, and then I don't have to worry about I guess any soft lines getting loose on me, rather than me trying to make additional pivot points for the hard line. So see how smooth I can make this. Great flare. You know what would be better? If I put the dang fitting on before I flared it. Alright, ignore the shakiness. Here's what we're doing for our fuel line. Correction, brake line. It's coming down to the down off the firewall, driver's side. Coming across through the holes. I'm gonna have to get some rubber insulators for this, however. Down, I'm gonna get all these clamped. Goes up over here. And then I gotta get make a new bracket. But I gotta replace this hose. So once I replace the hose, I'll know exactly where I need to make the bracket. Alright, so that's what I'm going to be running for my brake lines. For the most part, it's mainly complete. I may have to do a couple more little fasteners here or there to hold things in place. I'll take a look at it once maybe I can make sure that's actually going to hold fluid and all the seals are good. However, right now that's going to work. So I ran everything I needed from the master cylinder to the proportioning valve, and then the proportioning valve to the Dana 60 in the rear, and then also individual lines from the proportioning valve to both of the front disc brakes. So right now what I'm going to switch to is over to fuel system. Originally I was going to run a 3/8 inch steel tubing or stainless steel tubing. The problem that I'm having is that in front it's honestly just, well, too cramped. Maybe if I was building this or designing this to be with no motor, unfortunately, the motor being in, I just don't have the space to do it. So I'm gonna run PTFE hosing, soft hosing. I've already ordered it through Motion Raceworks. Should be here. The main hosing already came in. I'm waiting for some of the other fittings and things like that. And a second order I placed because I totally miscalculated my fittings. And then other than that, I should be able to get this thing plumbed and probably firing as soon as I get the electrical knocked out. So again, steps and steps and steps. I'm gonna fast forward a couple days here and I will break down everything I ordered for my fuel line, both from Tanks Inc. and also Motion Raceworks, what I don't have installed, so that way I can get everything plumbed and good to go. So fast forward now. All right, Motion Raceworks has came through. It's a little bit of a wait because some of the fittings were out of stock. However, they got me everything I'm needing. So I also have a box from what I have left over from Tanks Inc. However, this is what I got. I got 40 feet of steel braided PTFE hosing in stainless, and then left over from my Tanks Inc. purchase. And then I got a lot of different fittings, and I also have fuel pressure regulator that's left over from Tanks Inc. But all these other fittings in here, for the most part, are all from Motion Raceworks. Now, I just went with them because they just happen to have a lot in stock, and honestly, I've used a lot of their videos to kind of learn, so I figured it's fair support them because they're trying to help. So there's quite a few things in there. I'll do a complete layout here in a second. There was a few things that I didn't buy from them, mainly because I didn't have them, and I figured I'd rather have them and not need them than need them and not have them. One fancy thing, one way that a lot of people get around dealing with when you have to deal with punching a AN line through a firewall or something of the sort. A lot of times what people will do is they just punch a hole or drill a hole out with a step-up bit and then they just run the line through. Well, what's going to happen is as that's happening, it's going to continue to hit all around and scrape around the edge, and eventually you're going to eat through your hose. So the fancy little thing that this little gadget is essentially you just put that through the hole, and then you just have like a winged nut essentially that you tighten down and you pinch inside that firewall, and then you have an AN fitting on both sides that allow you then to connect, and then this won't vibrate or move on you, and you don't have to worry about rubbing through it. So I got a couple of those. Those did not come from Motion Raceworks. I think I got those like eBay or something of the sort. I think I got 2, if I remember correctly. And there should be these as well, which is, if you remember, I was going to do a hard line initially. So I have a soft line going from my tank. If I want to just keep that soft line, which I may, I pick these up, which are essentially a barbed fitting for me to place onto the soft line. And then what's going to happen is I just hose clamp it down, and that starts my AN fitting line. So I got 2 of those, one for my... So what these are, which I also picked up separate, I think probably eBay or something of the sort, I can't remember where I picked all these up, are Y blocks. Now, the concept of this is that obviously you can connect 2 lines in to one, or 1 line in to 2 lines out, which is what I'm going to need to do with my Phytex. Now, a little interesting concept is, for any of you who are going to do something similar, what you can do is, let me see if I can find, all right, there's one piece I need. Little interesting fact, what you can do is if you're trying to make these be similar, or the similar line, I guess you could say, to run in parallel with each other, you get a straight and then a 60 degree, and it makes it go straight. So despite what I thought with a 45, I figured it's a 45 degree split roughly. No, it's the one you're needing is a 60, but what that'll do is allow you to run essentially one line in, it'll go at a slight angle, but coming off the firewall, and then you have two lines going out, and they're symmetrical. So if you're OCD like I am at many things, that's a pretty cool trick. But let's get around to actually figure out what I need to do and laying this thing out on everything I need for the fuel line. So what I'm gonna do now is pretty much just lay out. I'll show you as best I can the whole process of what's gonna happen from fuel tank to whatever, from fuel tank to fuel filter to fuel pressure regulator all the way through. And then that way I just know I need to connect the hose somewhere along the line and then find nice little points where these mount where it will help me keep all of this organized, clean looking, and then get everything cut to length. Let's try that. Right, so a little bit more clear now, and I have all the fittings lined up complete. So what I'm doing right now is I'm laying out everything I need for the fuel line going to and from the tank all the way up to the Fitex and all the way back down. So my tank's going to start back here, which then goes to my first fitting, which will require a hose clamp, goes to an AN fitting going into PTFE hosing, which then goes to my 100 micron filter, which I'll have to mount, then goes to a fuel pressure regulator in, and then that then goes out. That out goes to a Y block. That Y block then feeds my two here and here. Then, correction, here and here. I have them backwards. Now, the fuel return line comes out on this side of the Fitec, which I'm going to have kick down, go back, connect to this Y block. This Y block then comes down and connects to here, which is filtered both from this Y block and here, coming down. The fuel pressure regulator kicks out on the bottom, which will also feed here, generate essentially another Y block, which comes down and feeds the return line back to the tank. So that, in theory, is all the fittings I need to make mine rotate, or actually work. Now here's the thing, it's a lot of fittings. I think my order, after all my fittings I ordered, I'm probably sitting at between that, the fuel line and everything else, probably just shy of $1,000. And that's a lot. But now that the loud motorcycle went past, it's a lot. It's a lot of money that I've spent on this. Hopefully it's going to work for what I need it for. It should. But I'm going to start trying to get everything kind of lined through and plumbed through, making sure it's all going to fit. And I'm going to work with the fittings in the back to make sure that I can bend the tubing appropriately because, well, with tubing you get with what you pay. I did pay a lot of money for that, but that was for the availability to run any fluids, not worry about the fluid eating away on the inside and going from there. All right, so got it marked. Now here comes the way in which I'm kind of cutting a corner. I don't have a good wire, not a wire cutter, like a hose cutter. Some people do use like almost like bolt cutter style. I'm gonna do the one way that they tell you to be very careful to do, which is using a cutoff wheel. What I'm gonna do now is I have my end marked, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna do a quick measurement here. Again, go just a little bit longer than I need. All right, and then, hold on. All right, so what I did is I put a little piece of tape on there to help me when I cut it, to help prevent any fraying that's going to happen on the outer wire section. So double check my lengths here. There's my cut, and it goes pretty much dead center, and we should be good to go. Alright, so for PTFE hosing, essentially on the inside it has a small piece of almost plastic lining. It's not really like a rubber, like how it is on some of their hoses. So how you end up getting a good seal on this is there's essentially what's called I believe an olive that's you place in the center. You place it in between the metal shielding on the outside and the actual rubber hosing. So for example, mine kind of, man, I can already foresee me cutting my hand frequently on this. So mine fit in pretty easy, not too many issues, fits in like so. I slid the outer part on first, and now essentially you just slide it in and tighten it down. So it's not too bad. I've already poked my fingers probably 8-9 times, so I can only imagine how beat up my hands are going to be, but when I'm done here, this should work for what I need. Give me 1 second. Alright, I got a set of Allen wrenches. 2 sets technically. Well, I have one that will fit like so, and then I actually have an adjustable wrench which will work for the other. So, place it on and tighten it down. One on. Might need to try to get that a little bit tighter here. I'm not too worried about completely tightening this down because, well, I gotta keep taking it off so I can run the other lines once I get the length. But this shows me where this is gonna sit, and in turn, what I need to do to run my other line. So if I do that there, now I'll run my secondary line here. I'm gonna replace this fitting in the back with a 90. I stole that 90 to put on my fuel pressure regulator, so I'm going to replace that one now. It's already ordered, so in like 2 days it'll be here. So in turn I'm going to keep working on all the other lines and go from there. But for the most part, I think this is going to work pretty well. Alright, so the remaining of the fittings came in that we needed. We're going to work on trying to do the plumbing on that, and some of the AN connectors for the bottom to hold the hose together. Megan's right now working on the AN fittings on the fuel lines for inside the engine bay. Really beyond that, we should be pretty close to done here, so let's finish it up. That's going to wrap it up for this one. The fuel line and brake lines are both plumbed. I haven't ran any pressure through them to make sure that there are no leaks. However, I'll go back through here before obviously I do a ton, retighten everything I need, run fluid, and then just bleed the brake lines. The fuel line, once I can get the wiring hooked up for the pump to the relay, I'll pressurize it. I'm not going to pressurize it with it currently on the onto the Phytex. What I'll do is I'll do an initial pressure into a fuel container to kind of flush the lines for a first gallon or two to make sure there's no more contaminants from me using the cutoff wheel with the PTFE hosing. Again, once you use a cutoff wheel on this kind of stuff, little bits of contaminants get inside the line. The WD-40 or whatever you use for lubricant gets inside the line, so you want to make sure all that's flushed out before you throw it through your Phytex. Other than that, I'm changing out the water pump housing on the front to make sure that I'm using the correct one. The one I currently had was dumping or had the pickup line on the driver's side, and I'm needing it on the passenger side. So what I'm going to do now is either switch the housing or make a bracket for a different Mazir water pump housing I have that doesn't allow any sort of alternator or power steering hookup. So I have to get creative on that. I'll do that on the video. And then also I have in the background, as you can see, this right here, this area here, in this box right there is my hood. That's my fiberglass hood. I'm not going to cut a hole in my steel one. So when I mount my fiberglass one, I'll take you guys along for that on how I do all my cuts and my hood pins and everything else I need to do. Other than that, that's about it. So if you guys have any more questions, if you guys want to see me elaborate on anything beyond what I kind of am doing, just let me know, and I'll try to be a little bit more in depth on certain things. Well, those are the next few things coming up, and then working on wiring as well so I can hear this thing fire. I need about 1.5 foot of exhaust on each header so I can run O2 bung, just to get basic what's happening with the Phytex, and then technically I can start doing the wiring and hear it fire up. So obviously that will be recorded as well. And if you guys have any other questions, let me know. And until then, keep building.